Hello, and welcome to Let Me Tell You a Story podcast, produced by ED Media. Today's story is from the best-selling novel, Journey to the Kingdom of Soul, written by author Everlazt. Chapter 25. The last of the soldiers just left the camp, Letty said as she climbed up into the wagon. Did you hear about what they're planning on doing today in the camp? Della asked. She sat Indian style on the wagon floor, twirling a piece cloth between her fingers. Letty knew Della only did this when she was nervous about something. Oh no, Della, don't tell me you're thinking about joining that uprising, Letty asked with a worried look in her eyes. Della looked down at her hands, then back at her friend and said, Why not? I mean, we can help our brothers and sisters in the camp, then go back to Industriland to free our queen. It works out for all of us. Yeah, but what if something goes wrong? Letty asked, staring down at the floor. Like what? I don't know, Letty said out of frustration. I mean, some of the soldiers could come back to the camp, then how will we defend ourselves? Come on, Letty, I'm sure they have some type of weapons if they're going to take over the camp. We just have to stick together, I know we can make it. There was an unexpected knock on the door, causing both women to almost jump out of their skin. Who is it? Della asked in a nervous tone. It's Nipoli. May I please come in? Della and Letty looked at each other with questionable eyes, until Della said, yes. Nipoli climbed up into the wagon, giving the two ladies inside a sneak peek of her two lookouts waiting outside. Hello, ladies. I'm sorry to show up here unannounced, but we have pressing matters that need everyone in this camp's attention. What do you mean? Della asked with a skeptic look in her eyes. We need your help. Our help, for what? Letty asked nervously. Tonight, we will overpower the remaining guards in this camp, and take back our freedom, Nipoli said. Della looked up at Letty, she's serious, Letty, then turned back to Nipoli. You want us to help you tonight? But what if something goes wrong? Like if Miss comes back? Della asked. Letty got a warm feeling in her body when she heard Della flood Nipoli with the same questions she just hit Della with. That's why we have to act fast, and be on our way. But I'm pretty short, miss, and the army will be too busy fighting the people in the Brook, than worrying about a camp full of servants and the elderly. She's right, Letty. If they do come back, we will be long gone, Della said. Letty nodded and said, Whatever you want to do, Della, you know I'm with you. You ladies sound like you have your own plans, Nipoli said. We do, Della said, standing up to meet Nipoli's stare. We're going back to Industriland to free our queen from the dungeon. Are you serious? Nipoli asked, shocked. Yes. We took an oath to protect and defend our queen, and we have to honor that, Letty said. I understand that, but Industriland is a very dangerous place. Even with the thin security they have left in the city, Nipoli said. It's a chance we have to take, Della said. Then leave her there to die, Letty added. Nipoli could see the two women had their minds made up, and she wasn't there to try and change it. She was there to recruit them for her plan. If these women had a plan for after the takeover, then so be it. Okay. You won't get any arguments out from me. So I can count you two in for tonight? Nipoli asked, knowing the answer to her question already. Della and Letty looked at each other, then back to the songstress. We'll be there, Della said with a convincing look in her eye. Thank you, Nipoli said, embracing both women, then moving on to her next target of recruits. Chapter break. The wind had always been his friend. Whenever he rode its waves, he always felt free as a bird. It had been a long time since Airman had taken a late-night flight. He really had no reason to. Once he left the Brook Brigade, Airman had fallen into a more grounded life in the jungle city. Which was hard to do standing at 6 feet tall, and having 6 feet wide wings on his back. His gift made him and his kind some of the most attractive humanals in the city. Airman was one of the best weapons the Brook had against any approaching enemies. His specialty was flying behind enemy lines and gaining intelligence for the brigade, or eliminating the enemy leader right in their own backyard. As the years grew on and the threats to the Brook became few to none, Airman's services to the brigade became useless, to say the least. Causing the decorated humanal to retire and focus on his clan of birdmen. All of this changed when Brendan, the frontline brigade leader, showed up at his doorstep with a mission, and a big one too. putting Airman right back in the skies he loved. Doing the work that made him feel like he had a purpose. Going behind enemy lines. Gliding over the trees, Airman swooped in the camp and landed on one of the sturdiest branches he could find. The camp looked relatively empty, except for a small group that was gathered around a campfire. Not wanting to waste any more time, Airman decided to fly in for a closer look. "What the hell is that?" Rusty asked, catching everyone in the group's attention. "I don't know," Rose answered. "Looks like a man," Thomas said as they all stood in silence. Airman smoothly landed 8 feet from them, then put his hands up in a defensive stance. "Please, don't be afraid. I was sent here to help you." "Who sent Cha?" Rusty asked in his country twang. "To help us do what?" Rose snapped. Fear rising in her chest about the black and gray stranger. Most of them had heard about Humanals and Musina who had human and bird genes mixed in their blood. But none of them had ever been face to face with one. "My council members in the jungle city sent me to assist you and the songstress tonight in your uprising," Airman said, trying his best not to spook the group. They all stood in silence, not sure of what to think of the sudden appearance of the Humanal, until Thomas broke the silence. "I've never seen you or your kind before, so how do we know you wasn't sent by Timu's and his sorcerers?" "Hey, what's going on over there?" A deep voice barked, causing everyone in the group to freeze. "I said what's going on over there?" the guard repeated, as he and his partner made their way over to the campfire. "What is that?" the guard asked, pointing at Airman. "I'm a messenger," Airman said, as he took 2 steps into the guard's direction. They seemed more amazed at his presence than alarmed by it. "A messenger from where, Birdland?" the guard asked as he grabbed the handle of his sword. "No, sir. The jungle city." Then Airman suddenly leapt high into the air and disappeared into the dark sky. The 2 guards pulled out their swords and stared up into the sky. "Nobody move," one of the guards ordered as they scanned the area for the stranger. Airman landed behind the 2 guards, and using 1 foot on each of them, donkey kicked them in their backs. Both men tumbled forward and landed on their faces. "I'll kill you," one of the guards cried as he scrambled to his feet. "Let's see you try that up here then," Airman commented, gliding in the air and snatching the guard by his thick chest cover. Put me down." "No problem," Airman said, taking the man high into the air, then tossing his body like a rag doll. The guard flew into the 50-foot-tall trees and felt every inch of his fall, as he went crashing down into a thick bush. The guard's partner stood frozen in shock. "What the?" Tara wasted no time pulling out the billy club she had stashed in her dress, and clobbered the guard on the side of his head. The guard fell to his knees in a daze. Thomas quickly swung into action, taking a 5-step run, then kicking the wounded guard in his face, shattering his jaw. Blood and teeth flew across the air and disappeared into the night as he blacked out. Rusty pulled out his billy club and went to work on the unconscious guard. "You bastard," Rusty cried, releasing all of his years of captivity on the man's bloody face. "Stop it, Rusty. He's dead," Rose shouted. In that instant, Rose wanted to bow out of the small rebellion before it even got started. Rusty stopped beating him and stepped back to calm down. Airman landed by the group as they stared at the dead guard, all of them realizing there was no turning back now. "Now what?" Kamala asked. "Now we go meet with the others," Tara said, taking over as the spokesperson of the group. Chapter break. "Hey! Where are you 2 going?" a patrol guard asked. Della and Letty froze in their tracks as the deep voice startled them. When they turned around, the 2 women came face to face with a single patrol guard, under the moonlight. He looked to be on a late-night stroll, and just happened to come across the 2 servants. We are in search of berries," Della blurted out. "At this time of night?" the guard asked, with a skeptical look in his eyes. He moved in close enough for Letty to smell the wine reeking off of his breath. "I don't believe you," he said. "I think you're out looking for some action." The guard's words sent a chill up Letty's spine. It was common for an industry army guard to stop women in the night and force her to do what he asked, or face a devastating fate. "We don't want any trouble, sir. We were just out for some berries," Della tried to reason with him. Don't worry, just come on over here and show me you don't want any trouble," the guard said, suddenly reaching for Letty's neck. Get your hands off of me. Letty screamed as she pulled out a knife Della had given her for protection, and went at the guard in a blind fury. Hey! The guard jumped backwards and tripped on a broken tree branch. Oh no, Della cried, as she watched Letty's momentum carry her into the fallen guard and jammed the knife into his chest. Get off me! The guard barked. Then he backhanded Letty. Letty flew off of him and crashed into the bushes. The guard looked down at the knife sticking out of his chest with a blank stare. Della snapped into action and jabbed him in his hand before he could pull the knife out of his chest. Somebody help me! Feeling overwhelmed with panic, Della continued to stab the guard. But the more she stabbed him, the more he screamed out in pain, causing a stir in the calm night air. Letty scrambled out of the bushes with a stick in her hand. Move, Della! Letty barked, but she didn't wait for her to move. Letty came down on the guard's mouth with enough force to break his front teeth. The guard choked and gargled on his own blood as the two women stood back and watched him die. What are we going to do? Letty asked after the guard fell silent. We should throw him in the bushes, Della suggested. Okay, but let's hurry, Letty said, feeling the urge to get out of Dodge. Della took the guard's weapons and other useful belongings, then they rolled his body into a thick bed of bushes. Now come on, we have to make it to the west end of the camp, Della said, checking to see if the coast was clear. Then she led the way over to the meeting place for the rebellion. Chapter break. Nipoli used a campfire as her backdrop, as she stood front and center at the gathering that seemed to growing by the minute. People were arriving from all over the camp with stories of run-ins with the camp's patrols. Looking at the faces of the gatherers, Nipoli got the feel of a people that longed for the opportunity to take back their freedom. More are coming, someone shouted from the back of the small crowd. Tell them to step forward, Fam said from Nipoli's side. Standing at 6 feet 5 inches tall, Fam possessed the body mass the army loved to industrialize and bring over to their way of life. But Fam was nursing a bad arm injury he received when the army invaded his land, landing him on the servant's staff. The crowd parted as the newcomers made their way up to the front. Nipoli recognized the people from the group, but they were accompanied by a face she didn't recognize. And who is that? Fam asked, stepping up, before Nipoli could ask the same question. Everyone in the crowd stared at the Humano with questioning eyes, while some reached for their weapons. I am Airman. I was sent here by my leadership council to assist you, he humbly stated. Leadership council? From where? Fam asked. His voice as deep and threatening as his dark stare. The Brook, Airman said proudly. Nipoli smiled. You were sent by Lil K. Yes. The Duchess is part of the Jungle City Council, Airman said. Thank you for coming, Nipoli said. You must be the songstress, Airman said with a slight smile. Yes, my name is Nipoli. Someone else is coming, someone shouted from the back of the crowd. Tell them to step forward, Fam ordered. The last group to arrive was the largest one yet, Nipoli silently noted. The group brought more electricity to her gathering, with people openly greeting each other for the first time in years. Della and Letty had run into another group on their way to Nipoli's rally, giving the two women a stronger sense of security, now that they weren't alone. When Della and Letty stepped forward accompanied by a man named Jerome, Nipoli smiled. I'm glad you could make it. I wouldn't have it no other way. Our freedom is the most important thing to us, songstress, Jerome proudly said, looking over to his newfound friends, Della and Letty. Yes. So what's next, Nipoli? Della asked, ready to get to the heart of their night. I was about to address that. I was waiting to hear word from the rest of the camp. And now that everyone is here, I think it's time, Nipoli said. The last time we spoke, you seemed to have your own plan of escape in mind. Yes. We are going back to Industrialand to free our queen, Della said. Okay. Like I said in the wagon, I welcome your decision to return to the city to free your queen, but I have a different plan in mind. Since it is a dangerous one, I'm going to give everyone the opportunity to choose their own destiny. Della silently nodded. Okay. Can I have everyone's attention, please? Nipoli asked, ending the private conversations that were carrying on at the gathering. I want to thank everyone for stepping into the forefront with me tonight. This step we have taken is a very large one toward our ultimate goal. Our freedom. The small crowd roared its approval. Then Nipoli continued, "You should be proud of what was done here tonight, but it doesn't end here. This is a new time in our history, so I ask you, how do you want to proceed? We can continue on with our fight and bring it to the backs of the army, as they fight the good people of the Brook. Or we can go back to Industriland and free our brothers and sisters from the dungeons in the city," Nipoli said, causing a stir of murmurs in the crowd. "I know both plans sound dangerous, but that is all we have now, my people. So with a show of hands, how many say we should go back to Industriland?" Nipoli asked. An impressive amount of hands went up. "And who feels we should help the people of the Brook?" The rest of the hands went up in the air. Looking over to Fam, Nipoli said, "I think those who want to go back should. And those who want to help the people of the Brook should do as they desire." "I agree," Fam said as he stared out into the crowd. "Even though we will be stronger if we remain together. But the key to our independence is the freedom of decision." "He's right," Jerome said as the murmurs continued in the crowd. "Okay, so it's settled. Those who want to go back will do so. And those who will follow me to the Brook will do so," Nipoli said, causing another round of discussions. Nipoli looked over to Della, Letty, and Jerome and said, "Will you lead the people back to the city to free our people there?" Letty looked over to Della and smiled. "Of course we would. Right?" Della said, looking over to Jerome. "Ah, yeah," he said, surprised to be initiated by the songstress in this form of conversation. "Whatever you need me to do, I'm here with it." "Good, 'cause they're going to need you to be," Nipoli told Jerome before she addressed the crowd and prepared them for the next phase of the night.
Hey everyone, it's author Everlazt. I want to thank you for listening to Let Me Tell You a Story podcast. Tune in for the next episode. God bless and be safe.